A lot of students get stuck at band 6 for writing task 2. So in this video, I'm going to show you a real band 6 essay and explain exactly what's stopping it from scoring higher. I'm going to walk you through the question, show you some of the biggest mistakes, and also give you some tips to score higher. So let's get started and look at the question. All right, so on the screen now, you can see the question. So let's have a look. You should spend about 40 minutes on this task. Now, this is important because writing task 2 is worth 66% of your overall writing score. Let's keep reading. Write about the following topic. Okay, pretty simple. So let's have a look at the topic. Some people believe that working from home benefits employees, while others think it makes them less productive. Okay, so there are two different views or opinions there. Discuss both views and give your own opinion. So let's look at that one more time. Discuss both views and give your own opinion. Okay, so there are two things you need to do there. Now, in regards to this here, it says both views. Well, what are those two views? Well, the first one is working from home benefits employees or is good for employees, while the second one is others think it makes them less productive or they think it makes workers less productive. So to fully answer this question, you need to talk about both of these views as well as give your opinion. So now that we understand the question and we know what to do, let's have a look at the answer from the student. All right, let's have a look at this answer sentence by sentence. We'll start with the introduction. Nowadays, remote work is getting more common in many countries. So there's nothing really wrong with this sentence, but at the same time, there's nothing really special about it. Now, something I do see is that it looks like a memorized opening line. And generally, you shouldn't be using memorized lines because they can make your writing sound not natural. But if you're in the real test and you can't think of anything to say, well, go ahead and use the memorized line because that's much better than writing nothing at all. Let's keep reading now. Some people think it is beneficial for the workers. Well, there's a grammar mistake there. It shouldn't be the, because we're not talking about any specific workers. But others believe they not get as much work done. So we need a word here. We need to add in something like may. They may not get as much work done. So this sentence here is talking about both sides, okay, beneficial for the workers, and then this is the other side. Now, let's look at the next sentence. This essay will discuss both sides and give some examples. So this is the outline. It's telling the reader what you're going to talk about in this essay. Now, there's one big problem that I can see with this introduction. Think about the question. What does it say? It says discuss both views and give your opinion. Well, in this introduction, I don't see an opinion. I don't see anything about the writer's position. So to improve this for next time, the writer should add their opinion into the introduction. So overall, this introduction, it's okay, but like I just said, it's missing the opinion, and it's also nothing special. It's just enough. And that's what band 6 is associated with. It's enough. It's enough to explain your ideas. There's no major problems, but there's nothing special about it. Let's move on to the second paragraph. One advantage of working from home is it can help people to save valuable time. Okay, fair enough. So it looks like in this paragraph, the person's going to talk about advantages of working from home. But just be careful because a lot of students think that when you get a question like this, you need to talk about the advantages and the disadvantages. Well, this is not necessarily true because the question says discuss both views. It doesn't say give the advantages or the disadvantages. It just says discuss. And most of the time, you need to give the reasons why people believe one side or the other. So let's continue now. When Employees do not have to commuting to the office. Well, there's a grammar mistake there. It should be commute, but that's okay. For a band 6, if you make small grammar mistakes like this that don't cause any problems for the reader, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. Now, just something to mention here is that the writer has used some okay vocabulary. They've said valuable, they've said employees. So this is definitely not a 5 when it comes to vocab, because we can see that there is not a limited vocabulary. It looks like they have enough vocabulary to describe their ideas. Let's keep going. They can use that time for constructive things. Another fantastic word there, constructive. If you do something constructive, it means you do something productive. So you use your time well and you get something done, like spending time with family or relaxing. For me, I don't really like this word like. It sounds a bit informal, and it's more something that you would use when you are speaking. All right, let's continue now. Furthermore, staying at home can makes, okay, well, that's a grammar mistake, can make people feel comfortable, which can improve their mood. Okay, fair enough. So I think that is another idea now, another advantage. Moreover, many people say less stressed when they work at home. I think there's a problem there. I don't think that should be say. I think that should be maybe feel, or maybe say they feel less stressed when they work at home, because they do not have to worry about traffic congestion. Okay. Again, some okay vocabulary there, traffic congestion. And the last sentence now, in general, working from home lets people manage their time, which is good for work and life balance. Instead of saying work and life balance, you need to say work dash life balance. Now, just something to note with this last sentence, it's normally not necessary to write a summary at the end of your paragraph. It would be much better if the writer gave more support, okay, gave more information about their main ideas, because you can see that the main ideas are very general. There's nothing really specific. And if you're trying to get a high band for task response, you need to have more specific development and support for your answers. Also, just something else to mention, particularly in regards to the coherence and the cohesion, just having a look here, furthermore, moreover, it doesn't sound very natural. It just sounds a bit strange. If a native speaker with a very high level of English was writing this, they wouldn't use words like this, furthermore and moreover. So overall, this body paragraph is okay. There's nothing majorly wrong with it, but to make it better, I think that the writer needs to expand their ideas a bit more. They also need to use some less common vocabulary, because the vocabulary is enough, but it's just, there's nothing special about it. There's nothing to show that the writer is or has a high level of English. All right, let's keep going to the next paragraph now. On the other hand, okay, so a nice cohesive device. It's telling the telling the reader that we're going to move on and talk about something different now. Working from home can sometimes reduce productivities. Well, that should be productivity. Okay, no IES. At home, there are many things that can distract them. Just something to mention, there should be a comma here after at home. And actually, that's something I forgot to mention up here. If you're using furthermore, and I'm not saying that you should, but if you are, you need to have a comma after furthermore. So let's go back down and keep reading this sentence. Like watching TV or doing housework. So again, I don't really like that word like, because it sounds a bit informal. It's not really something that should be used in academic formal writing. Now note here, we've got another piece of vocabulary that's quite nice. Distract, a very nice word there. Now let's keep reading. In addition, some peoples, okay, well, that's clearly an issue. It should just be some people, may lack a quiet place to work. Well, not lack, we would probably say may not have a quiet place to work, which makes it harder to concentrate. Again, a nice piece of vocabulary there. Now, again, look at this coherence and cohesion. In addition, it's just not very natural to use a lot of words like this in very professional, formal writing. Let's continue now. When there is no boss or supervisor watching, another nice piece of vocab there. Some workers might not get to the same level productive. So that's a bit funny. We'll come back to that in a second. As the office. So this sentence needs to be rephrased at the end here. I think the writer could say something like some workers might not reach the same level of productivity. So there's a change required there. Let's keep going to the next sentence. For this reasons. Well, that's a mistake. Should be for these reasons. Working from home can lead to smaller productivity for some workers. Well, this is an example of using the wrong word. It wouldn't be smaller. The correct word would probably be reduced productivity for some workers. So you can see here that the writer has enough vocabulary to describe their ideas, but sometimes the writer makes some small errors with vocabulary. There's nothing really major, nothing really big about the mistakes, but nonetheless, there are still some mistakes. Now, just in regards to grammar, I haven't really talked about grammar much. I think the writer's grammar is okay. There are some simple sentences, there are some complex sentences, but there's not enough variety to push it to a higher band when it comes to grammar. Also, something else to mention is that there's not enough variety. There's not enough different sentence structures to push it to a higher level. For example, I haven't seen any passive voice. A lot of the sentences have followed the same structure, like having a clause and then, for example, having which afterwards and then giving more information, or starting with when. Okay, when here. I think there was one, up here as well. There was another when. Okay, so just like the first body paragraph, this sentence here, okay, you don't need to have a summary. You don't need to have a summary about the body paragraph. I would like to see the writer use those words to support the ideas more, because again, it just looks like the support is quite general. There's nothing really specific about this support. It's very generalized. So let's have a look at the last paragraph now. In a nutshell, well, straight away, that's a problem, because in a nutshell is an idiom, and for formal writing, generally you should not be using idioms. Let's change that to something much more simple and just say in conclusion. Okay, keep it simple. A lot of very effective high-level writing is very simple, and that's something I see a lot of students do wrong when they're trying to get a high band score for writing. They try to write something that's just too fancy, or they try to put too much into their writing, but just keep it simple. Simple is best. So let's keep going here. Working from home has both advantages and disadvantages. Okay, fair enough. It can help workers save time and feel more comfortable, but it can also lead them less focused. So there's something wrong with the grammar here. We would need to say can also lead them to be less focused and not work productive. Well, work is a verb in this sentence. Productive is an adjective. So we need to fix that by adding an ly. So again, just some small grammar mistakes, just some small vocabulary mistakes, but nothing major, nothing significant. And let's look at the last sentence now. I think it is a beneficial thing, and I recommend that everyone start to do this immediately. So it looks like this is the opinion. Okay, and that's great, because remember, you need to give your opinion to fully answer the question. That's a part of getting a high band for task response. However, it's just not very clear. I don't really like it, because the writer says, I think it. Well, what's it? Because in the previous sentence, they've talked about, being productive, less focused. It again. So it's just not really clear. Again, it. So for me, I would recommend that the writer doesn't use it as much. I'm not saying not to use referencing or substitution, but it needs to be clear. If you're using these types of cohesive devices, you need to make sure you're using them correctly and it's clear what you're talking about. So in summary, let's score this essay. Let's go down to the bottom and we'll give it a score. For task response, I would give this a 6 because it does answer the question. It does talk about both sides, but the support is very generalized. There's nothing really specific about it. And I think there should be more support. I don't think there was enough support in this essay. For coherence and cohesion, I'd also award a band 6 because it was enough. Yes, the sentences flowed okay, but there were some bits where the coherence and the connection between the sentences wasn't correct and it wasn't very smooth. It sounded a bit unnatural. Now, when it comes to lexical resource, I'd also award a 6 because there was enough vocabulary for the writer to explain their ideas, but there were not really any examples of less common vocabulary, and also there were some mistakes when it came to the vocabulary. So to improve lexical resource, I would suggest that the writer uses some higher level vocabulary, some less common vocabulary, and try to make less mistakes with the vocab. When it comes to grammar or grammatical range and accuracy, again, I would award that a 6 because there were some simple sentences, there were some complex sentences, but there were some mistakes and there wasn't enough variety or there wasn't a big enough range to push it to a higher band score. So to improve this one, the writer needs to increase the range, use a bigger range of sentence types and structures, and make less little mistakes. So overall, this person is a band 6.0. Now, when you think of 6, I mentioned this before, 6 means enough. So it's enough to explain your ideas, but there's nothing special about it. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just enough. So that was why the essay was a band 6 and why it wasn't higher. If you want to learn how to write the perfect essay for writing task 2, check out this video right here. Thanks for watching, take care, and all the best with your studies.